All right, my kindergarten friends, we are going to take our everyday heroes that we drew with pencil, and we are going to now trace them with Sharpie. We want them to look like a coloring book. So they've got a nice outline. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll get back with you in just a sec. Okay, now that I've drawn in my pencil line or my Sharpie lines, I'm going to erase all my pencil lines because I didn't exactly trace them neatly. And we can go in and color them. You can color these any way you want. I like to use colored pencils for drawings like this, but I had a lot of students that wanted to paint, so I thought that we could do a little combination of the two. Because some areas are a little bit too small for paintbrushes, and other areas are great for it. So thought we could do both. Erase all my pencil lines. Okay, I traced my mom's eye a little wonky. That's okay. She still loves me. So my hero was my mom, if we remember correctly. Now, skin tones are kind of hard with paint, so we're just going to use a little bit of a colored pencil to sort of lightly shade. And you're, depending on how tan or fair your light or dark your skin tone of your mom could be, it may be different. My mom is pretty tan. You wouldn't know it by looking at my fair skin, but she is much darker. So I'm going to add her darker hair, skin tone, and then we're going to add her hair. So she has sort of like a brownish red hair, and it's curly. So when I'm coloring it, I'm coloring it with these curls. If your hero has straight hair, you may color it straight. And then I'm going to add a little bit of some red to it to sort of make it a little bit more fun, a little bit more like my mom. Your hero is going to look totally different than mine, obviously. My mom also has green eyes, so I'm going to go in here, get that iris green. And she sometimes wears a little bit of purple above her eyes. And we could get that mouth in too with a little bit of red. Now, if you wanted to add your details to your shirt or anything else, you could do that. I am going to go ahead and put in my mom's favorite color, which is purple, inside. Oh, looks like I picked blue. That's okay, she likes blue too. I'm going to go ahead and put that inside of my hero logo. And you can see I'm also going to do the neck, make that sort of match up. Okay, now if I wanted to, I could use the white pencil. Sometimes that white pencil works as a nice little blender. It smooths out any of these marks. You can see how I just drew really lightly, and you can blend a little bit with the white. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on your colored pencil brand, and it depends on the paper you're using. So you can try that out. All right, now if you want to make it look like your mom is standing on a sidewalk, here's a neat little trick. You just draw some diagonal lines, and it looks like she's on a sidewalk, like fine. I can make it look like there's a curb there too. Ooh, we are getting fancy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go in with the paint next. I'm going to use tempera cakes because that's what I happen to have near me. You can use watercolor, or you can continue with colored pencils, markers, or crayons. That's your choice. So I have these tempera cakes that we're going to use, and I've got some water, and I'm going to go ahead and do like we do with watercolors. These are very similar to watercolors. They're just a larger size, and they paint a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go ahead and swish, drag, swirl, get my dark blue for those jeans. See, you can see how they paint just like watercolors. A little more paint on my brush. through. Now if I wanted to make this darker with either tempera cakes or watercolor, what I would do is let this dry, and then I would go back in later and add more color. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a yellow shirt. I'm going to do a yellow shirt here. And I'm going to fill in these little gaps with the very pointy tip of my brush. If you can't fill it in with your brush, just go ahead and go in there with your with your colored pencils. Next, I'm going to clean my brush again, and I'm going to take some red, get my cape done. Now, the one thing I like about tempera cakes over I keep saying oil pastel, over watercolor is that it dries really quickly. So, I can paint right next to it and I don't have to worry about my colors bleeding. If you're using watercolor, you might want to give it a few minutes and let those colors dry completely so that they don't bleed together. Because if my yellow touched my red, I would end up with orange, and if my yellow touched my blue, I would end up with green. So with the tempera cakes, they do tend to dry really quickly. Get some more red down here around our fingers. Remember, I said you didn't have to worry about hands. You could just leave the balls for hands, those little circles. That was fine. We're not worried about hands. We were worried about making sure that we got all the body parts on first. So we have a head, body, arms, legs, eyes, nose, mouth. All right, so I've got that cape. Swish, drag, swirl. I wanted to make these blue jeans a little bit darker, so like I said, after they dry, you can go in and you can add a little bit more with both watercolor and tempera cakes, and it will make them darker. They layer. I'm going to layer that way too. So you can see how much darker the one leg is. Even though it's still wet, it looks nice and dark. I'm going to do the other leg the same. You always know when your paint is wet because it's shiny. Once it dries, it stops being shiny. All right. Next up, we're going to add some shoes. Maybe I'll add some fun green shoes. Green. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit of black here, and you'll see that if I add a lot of water, it's going to turn that black into gray for my concrete, for my sidewalk. As long as you add a lot of water, it's going to get gray. Now another way to make it gray is to paint it, add your water, and then take a Kleenex or a paper towel or a napkin, and you can blot away the color. So I can put this down, and then I can come in while it's still wet and dab it up, and that will make it look a little bit lighter too. Put a little water down, a little bit of black in here, and there we go. Got my sidewalk. Cool trick, right? With that gray and the diagonal line making a sidewalk. All right, clean my brush. I'm going to do the top part of my background, and I'm going to do a nice yellow, or I'm sorry, orange. Oh my goodness, you can't talk today. I'm going to go right around my hero, my mom. And every time my brush starts to get a little bit dry, I just add a little bit of water to it. And I'm keeping my brush strokes pretty much in the same direction, making sure that the red is dry before I paint next to it so that they don't bleed together and make a big color blob. Fill in all the white spots. Got a little bit bleeding over here into the pants, so I'm going to take my Kleenex again and blot it. And you can see it just takes it right off. A little bit in here. That's that Kleenex paper towel napkin trick of blotting works on everything. It works on watercolor and it works on tempera cakes. Gonna go ahead, come in here, go around the top, try to get in between those curls. Around the bottom of those curls, around the arm. I'm using just the very, very tip to get in those little spaces. Come in here. And then I'm going to go some nice long brush strokes. Now you can see that my brush gets dry when you can see those brush strokes, so I just need to add some more water, some more paint, and I can finish my painting off. Now, I like to paint all the way to the edge of my paper, and that sometimes causes problems because I often paint the table. I'm going to blot a little, get that picked up. Alright, my painting is done. So you can see I used a combination of colored pencils and Sharpie and paint to complete my painting. Now, like I said, sometimes I end up with paint on my table, and you can fix that either by having a messy mat or a newspaper or something down, or if you know you're using a washable paint like I did, you can go ahead and just take a wipe to it afterward. I was using washable paint and I knew my surface was washable. So check with your grown-up first and make sure you clean up when you're done. All right, my friends.